Any public?
No, there's no one.
Okay, beautiful. Number three, approval of prior minutes of November 4th, 2024. Would anyone like to make a motion?
I'll make that motion.
Do we have a second? Sharon seconded. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Old business, hearing none. Moving to new business. Architect's report. Justin, you're up.
Good evening, Mr. Chair, members of the building committee. There are a lot of updated construction administration reports in the folder that Adam sent out on Friday. I'll summarize the activity that has occurred since we last met 2 weeks ago. We've had 24 new construction RFIs for a total of 235. We've had 27 new submittals for a total of 673. So still kind of on the tail end of the heavy submittal flow. We've had one new PCO in the past 7 days. Reviewed applications for payment, have continued to meet with the project team on a weekly basis. The most important thing that will be coming down the pike over the next couple SBC meetings are the FF&E technology and Playscape package. We're in the process. We had what I believe to be our last meeting today with the stakeholders for FF&E. We have our Playscape packages pulled together, and we're just waiting on a couple of remaining pieces from the town IT department regarding the fiber network switch connections. But we're in pretty good shape for putting those packages in front of this body, then the Board of Education at, I believe, Adam, is it our December 10th meeting or the December 10th meeting? Yes.
Yes, Board of Ed on the 10th and School Building Committee, this group, on the 16th.
Yeah. So what that will do, similar to the last two phases that we've gone through, those formal actions by this board, this committee, will set us off on the path for approval at the state to then go into procurement. So a lot of work's been going on in the background, in addition to the kind of our standard construction administration activities. So Sharon, I think you were on the call earlier today. I think we're in pretty good shape for that, for at least for the FF&E. So with that, I'm happy to answer any questions. Hopefully I wasn't muted there.
Nope, that was short and sweet, to the point. Appreciate it. Moving on to construction update. Robert, I assume you're taking this one?
Yep. Thank you, Mr. Chair. Let me go ahead and share my screen. All right. So this drone flight was as of Wednesday last week. So just to orientate you, this is Munger Town Road over here towards the right of the screen. And what we're trying to show out of this is you can see over at the main level A part of the building, you kind of get a little picture of the brick that's been installed. The brick on the exterior has been installed down around and over to the corner of main A. So at this point, we're substantially complete with the brick on that A portion of the building. What started last week as well are the metal panels. So when you're looking at this image, there are panels above these windows. So the white areas are the windows that we have temporary protection in. Above them are metal panels. And we actually mobilized the metal panel contractor late last week. And he actually, as of today, has couple, 2 or 3 of the elevations up at this high roof done. And then he's going to jump down and follow the mason around A with the metal panels there. Next week on Monday, another big milestone is we're going to start the window installation. So they're actually going to start in the courtyard and then work around as well. Kind of following the way the mason flowed. It's hard to tell here, but the interior courtyard in this image right here, this is also complete with brick. So that's been substantially complete and washed down. So we're kind of keeping a nice little flow with the sequence on the exterior. One of the reasons I picked this angle is down in this corner here where it transitions to the 2-story in lower B. We have a bunch of the mason scaffolding set up, and actually as of today, he's almost up to about half, 3/4 of this elevation, starting from where the gray is. That's the CMU. So from the gray over to this corner, he's basically continued in a couple of days. Has gotten a good amount of progress with brick on that elevation. What they're going to do is continue to go down this north side of A. And then I'll save trying to jump around, but they've actually mobilized and are setting up and starting the brick on the south side of A over at this stairwell in this corner as well. So the goal is in the next couple of weeks have 2 elevations of brick going on this lower area, and then they'll wrap and meet in the middle on the east in the back. And all that's targeted to complete in the next couple of weeks and be substantially complete by the new year. A couple other just quick highlights on the exterior is we are in the process of installing the retaining wall over here at the north elevation. So that's going to be a big milestone to let us grade out and continue with the canopy and the entrance work here. And then right by this piece of equipment, right where my cursor is, that's the Eversource transformer pad. So as of today, we have the secondaries installed from this pad into the building, which is important for the power, turning on the power. And then what we did on Friday was actually continued clearing with the trees along this north side, which will allow us to take what's known as the primary side of the power and install the conduits from the same transformer pad out to the street. It's not shown in this drone image, but there's actually a second pole now that's been installed as of today, or at this location. So that allows us to then bring our conduits from that new pole for the permanent power over to the transformer. So that's a big milestone, big step. And just one other note as far as permanent power, the last piece of equipment, that main switchboard, is scheduled to ship this Friday, and it's being manufactured actually up in Windsor, Connecticut for Eaton. So that's going to be ready to ship Friday. We should see it on site early next week. So that's a important milestone and just something definitely worth noting. So as far as permanent power with the poles and the raceways and the equipment, we're tracking right where we want to be for schedule. And then just quickly, so I don't take up too much time, I figured I'd give you a quick little summary of what's going on inside the building as well. So this is main level A. You kind of see, so Mungertown Road would be over off the page left in this scenario.
Did Robert freeze up? I think.
I think so.
Okay.
Or basically to the point where we're starting sheetrock. So that means frame them. We pass in-wall inspection. We actually then insulate the walls both at the exterior and the interior for sound. And then we have another inspection with the town to make sure that insulation's installed properly. And then we're actually allowed to start fully sheetrocking, closing up these rooms. So right now they are in good shape in A, or area 1, proceeding to 2, and I believe we have passed area 3 as well. Area 4 and 5 we've passed in wall, and they're getting ready to pass that insulation inspection. So big picture is basically this main area A is transitioning right now as of today into sheetrock and taping, which is huge because then from there we transition in the finishes. So which we're targeting for late December, early January. So that's all on schedule and all proceeding as we originally scheduled. This is now main area B. So main level still, but down closer to Daniel Hand in the back of the site, if you would. These areas are all framed out and are in a heavy in-wall roughing. So our next milestone for this section of the building in December is to pass that same in-wall inspection so that we can start insulating and sheetrocking, which is also actually a little ahead of schedule, but kind of progressing exactly where we want it to as well. And then the last zone So Vinny, our super, didn't renumber these. He just took the same numbers as main level B and just said added LL after them, which isn't as confusing as it seems like it would be. But main level, lower level B in these areas, what we're doing now in these main areas are actually going through and framing. So if you were to walk that lower level, you would basically see all these rooms framed out, including some of this kitchen, the majority of the kitchen area. The gym area, we're actually in the process of completing this east wall. So this is almost up to deck and substantially complete. But this lower level, as far as the MEP rough, the next stage after the framing, is just in its preliminary stages. So we have some rough occurring in the walls and the above ceilings, but it's this would be the third and probably the last. This is kind of the last area we're going to finish as we transition into 2025 in the finishes and the sequence of construction. So I figured I'd try to give you kind of a little quick glimpse of how we're progressing and how we're sequencing through the building from A to B and then down. And at this point, I'd open up and see if there's any questions.
Robert, thank you. When's the facade commissioning process going? When is that going to happen? After you do the windows?
So some of the heavy testing will be after the windows. We actually started the commissioning, the envelope commissioning now. Let me see if I can pull it up. Boop. What they've been doing actually is wherever you see this blue material, the AWB, the air water barrier on the exterior building, they've been out and actually pull testing that. So they've been looking at the installation and then testing it. They were out today as well. And then what they've done is I don't think I have a good example, but where we have doorways and like conduits penetrating the exterior wall for lights and security type items, they actually fog test to make sure that those openings are sealed properly. I would think the actual commissioning and testing of the windows would probably occur closer to sometime in January. So a couple weeks still for that.
The BVH fog testing, one of the reports was in the October 21st packet. And as we get those in, I insert them in the field test report. But so far, there's been small items they've picked up, but it's been going well because even with those small ones, then they can be sure to check those in part of future installations. So building's looking pretty tight based on BVH's report so far.
Beautiful, beautiful. And
then just lastly, too, a special shout out to Tecton and the team. You can obviously see the pace of what's going on and having them support us with their consultants has been huge because it kind of keeps us in that flow. What sometimes can happen is if we don't get answers and they don't sense the urgency with us, we get out of flow. And that nice 3-step process I took you through with the PDFs, that gets totally disrupted and turns into going back and forth, and we're on every floor and totally out of sequence. So thank you, Justin, and your team.
Yeah. It's all the rest of the team, Rob. So as you know, thank you.
Beautiful. Any other questions for Robert? Moving on to the OPM update. Adam, if you're ready.
Yep. So short update for me tonight before we get into procurement and the invoice packet. As Justin mentioned, targeting the December 10th Board of Education meeting and the December 16th School Building Committee meeting for the approvals of all 3 packages just in one shot. So the idea is that the packages will get wrapped up slightly beforehand. So I'll issue those sort of as a preview in the packet. There'll be a lot of documents, a lot of forms required for OGA, but basically everything that has been presented so far, everything that's been going through the working groups with end user stakeholders, et cetera, those are just getting codified into some of the more traditional drawing layouts and spec sheets, similar to what we had for construction. So those will be forthcoming probably end of the month, first part of December, to get a couple days to look at it before we go to vote on it. But again, everything that got presented last time, presented to the Board of Education, presented to the Board of Selectmen, it's all the same general scope. We're just, finalizing, in many cases, literal colors or, finished selections, that kind of thing. But the scope is generally set at this point. So that's, like, as Justin mentioned, that's a key focus for the work outside the construction group. As two other points I would just kind of highlight to complement what Justin said and what Rob said. There's been a lot of good conversation around the graphic images. I briefly mentioned that at the last meeting. The reason why that was such a focus is that there was I think a good effort and a good desire to try to incorporate some potential student work in photography into that effort. So I think we're basically at the home stretch now in terms of locations, working with some of the finishes group on that effort. There will need to be a sort of a cleanup change order that comes through. So this body will see that because some of the graphic images are being targeted for removal just because they're in corners, and the graphics didn't seem like they would be the most appropriate in those locations, as well as just some changing of materiality, a backup material on the wall to receive a graphic image, or if it's getting taken down, you got to put it back with some wall protection. So that way it's not just, drywall in a hallway that might get marked up and things like that. So there will be a close-up change order that makes its way before this committee, but we wanted to get the actual photographs ironed out first. So those can get structured, sized up, sent to Cobain, released in time to start the lead process while we clean up any of the pluses and minuses on the wall materials. So good process there. And I thank the town for being quick on getting the images. Otherwise, this is a thing that could easily get drawn out if people weren't on the ball. So it's been, like I said, a good process, good conversation there. The last thing I would mention before we maybe dive into the procurement items is that there is some discussion with planning and zoning right now about the front sidewalk. The intention is, if you recall back, was to have a sidewalk between the two school entrances along Mungertown Road. And that kind of shook out of some of the neighbor discussions very early in design. So the drawings do show that. If you recall, we did not approve the alternate for the sidewalk because there were questions about should it be concrete, should it be asphalt, those types of questions that are still, quite frankly, outstanding. However, there is, in talking with Gilbane, there is the potential for some efficiencies by doing some additional demolition work along the frontage road. Right now, the scope doesn't call for removing some of those rock rubble wall and a couple of the trees along Mungertown Road. So just walking the site and trying to provide a sort of a finished project at the end of the end of construction, we're looking at the opportunity for doing some of that additional clearing work along Mungertown Road here in the short term. But need to work with planning and zoning to confirm there's no issues there, and just to make sure that what we're doing makes sense in terms of sequencing and ultimate approvals. So there's no action item here tonight, but there may be an ATP, a change order, coming up here shortly to add some of that additional cleanup to the front of the project as we move forward to a decision on how to proceed with the sidewalk. And I think tonight there's a discussion on sidewalks in general at the Board of Selectmen level, including Green Hill and maybe a connection from the Daniel Hand campus over to the new elementary school. So there's been a few moving bits and parts with this, which is why it's been sort of lingering, and try to drive that to a conclusion so we can isolate what we need to do for this project separate from the rest of the town's projects. So again, no action item here, but that's just something that's been in the works and in discussions on the back end.
Yeah, the reimbursement is, we wouldn't get reimbursed by the state no matter what we did because it's off-site, right?
For any portion that's off-site, there might be an opportunity for if there's a different configuration that some of the work might be on site, that we could squeeze some eligibility out of that. I wouldn't bank on it, but depending upon where the property line is versus where the sidewalk ends up. That might be something that, could request from the state to include as part of eligibility. But you're correct. Anything outside the project property line, like where the sidewalk is currently shown, would be ineligible because it's outside the property line.
Got it. Any questions for Adam? Sharon, you're happy with the pictures? You're okay with the photos and I know that was a big point for you.
Yeah,
You're
no, it all looked great.
going?
Nope.
What?
It looks great.
Count on you to keep us straight on that photo stuff. So
I was involved, don't worry.
okay, I want to make sure. Excellent. Okay, moving on to number 5, if you're done, Adam.
Share my screen here. So we have 2 change orders on the docket for tonight. First one is pretty straightforward. It's a credit for just over $2,200 for some isolation dampers that, going through the coordination process and submittal of final products, ultimately weren't needed. So they were proposed to be removed from scope to save some money. Justin, anything to add to that, or is that basically the sum of it?
Straight credit. So we're good. We've reviewed this. Our consultants have reviewed this. We think it's an acceptable credit for the project.
That is ATP 41. The other item is ATP 44. This is for just over $6,000. In a similar vein, for some coordination after bid for additional steel at curtain wall 8. Kind of looking through the process here. There's a coordination piece that happens between delegated design for some of the cold floor framing at the exterior of the building and the structural steel. So this is looking at some of the wind loading and some of the interactions between the cold floor framing at the exterior and the structural backup. Some additional steel was required to make those connections work, basically. And so that it seems like we were good everywhere else, but this was just one location where the wind loading required a little more to tie in. And that was just at the head, I think, right, Justin? Just at the top there.
Correct.
Yeah.
And this was generated from an RFI that resulted from some of the coordination with the curtain wall, and it went through the RFI response process to include the additional steel that's required for this.
Those, like I said, those are the only 2 ATPs for tonight. Happy to answer any questions. Otherwise, I do have draft motions for those 2.
Would anyone like to volunteer to read these 2 items?
I'll do it.
Thank you, Sharon.
Motion to approve ATP 41 for the change to Gilbane's existing construction contract for credit in the amount of $2,271 for isolation dampers that are no longer required.
Do we have a second on that?
I'll second that, yes.
Woody, thank you. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Next.
Motion to approve ATP 44 for the change to Gilbane's existing construction contract in the amount of $6,035 for additional steel at curtain wall 8.
Do I have a second?
And that,
All in favor?
aye.
Unanimous?
And then we have the invoice packet for this evening for almost 3.7 million, including the monthly invoice from Colliers, some of the town staffing charges to the project, a number of invoices from our materials testing lab, and pay application 8 for Gilbane for just over 3.6 million.
They do like putting out, Tri-State definitely likes to put out invoices, huh? Wow.
In bunches. It can be, it goes kind of feast or famine with them in terms of when we get the invoices, but when we do, we look at them and we advise. So far they've been pretty straightforward. So all good on the materials testing front.
Excellent. Anyone like to volunteer to read this?
Sure, I'll keep reading. Motion to approve invoice package dated 11/18/2024, including invoices from Colliers, Town of Madison, and Tri-State in the amount of $62,556.31, and construction payment requisition 8 from Gilbane in the amount of $3,631,248.48, for a total approval of $3,693,805.79.
249, Sharon.
Did I read it wrong?
Yeah, you said 8.
Oh, sorry. 49.
Thank you.
Corrected. Do we have a second?
I'll second that. Yes. Thank
All in
you.
favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Unanimous? Excellent. Anything else, moving on to, you're all set, Adam?
I'm all set. Thank you.
Moving on to number 7, public comment. Raquel, anyone, with their hand raised?
No.
No. Okay, thank you. Number 8, remarks. Any remarks, comments anyone would like to make? Would anyone like to make a motion to adjourn?
Well, keep it simple.
Do we have a second, Woody?
I'll second it.
All in favor?
Aye.
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 Thanks, everybody.
Have a good
Thank you.
night.
Hey,
Okay.
take care.
Take care.
Aye.
Watch out early,
Bye.
George. Okay,
Night.
take care.